Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and welcome to the iOS Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody. I'm back after my little hiatus for my little world travels for the last couple of weeks. We definitely want to thank you for showing Brother Tech love and for showing our Tech John friend, Steph, Tech Life Steph, love too while she filled in for me on one of the weeks that I was out. And if you want to get some additional content outside of this recorded show, you can head on over to patreon.com/snoboscast, where you can watch the show live and get additional exclusive content. So, with that being said, me back on the block, let's go ahead and jump into this week's show. We're going to start off with the Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. First up this week, Apple's emergency SOS software that was announced, maybe a year and a half or so ago, that has shown great prospects, meaning it uses satellites to pinpoint your location if you get lost in the wilderness somewhere,
Which people
or
have already got lost and used
right
this feature to
in
save themselves.
right in ravines, on mountains, rock climbing, hiking, all these types of things. Well, it's good to know for iPhone 14 users, existing users. Initially the Apple offered this emergency SOS for 2 years. They have now decided to extend that an additional year, but only for existing iPhone 14 users.
Ah,
And what existing iPhone 14 users include is a very finite group of people. So it's basically people who have activated their device, their iPhone 14, within a country that supports emergency SOS prior to 12 a.m. Pacific time on November 15th. So as we're actually recording the show,
too late.
you're about to run out of time. So if you're hearing this on Friday, sorry. If you are a Patreon supporter, you actually get to this information in real time. So you would get the heads up on that. So the initial service that was offered for the emergency SOS was only in the US and Canada. Fortunately, now that has been extended to include Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, which we already knew, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, and the UK. So if you have an iPhone 14 that you have activated prior to today at 12 a.m. Pacific time, you will get an additional year of emergency SOS
So
service.
I'm curious, does this mean activated their device? I'm being specific here.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean activated their device or activated the emergency SOS feature within the device?
I believe it's just the device
Okay.
because they say
All
it's
right.
for iPhone 14 users.
Okay.
So if you have the iPhone 14, the emergency SOS is already built in. So it's basically saying, if you have this phone, whether you use it or whether you don't, in the event that you need it, if you have your phone activated by the 15th of, which is today, you'll get that additional year. And I was trying to figure out why they gave an additional year. And I'm wondering if because the adoption of the iPhone 15 maybe wasn't as robust
Mm,
as they initially thought. And maybe they saw an uptick in people buying the 14 because it was likely a little bit cheaper than the 15 and they're very similar in nature. So that was kind of my guess. I don't know, but
Um,
it was interesting.
maybe they want to collect more data. Maybe they just want to make sure that they get a groundswell of data so they can fine tune it, maybe. And maybe the sample that they currently have is like, this is okay. But another year worth of data,
Yeah.
won't hurt and maybe even help a little bit.
Yeah. That makes sense too. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I get an extra year, so I'll get 3 years of the free service. And I hope uh, anybody who has a 14 has already done so. And if you're getting one for the holidays, sorry, you're gonna miss out. Next up, a slew of betas were released, I believe, yesterday, and they're available today. Well, they're available as of now. This is the third round of betas for basically the dot two versions of where we currently are. So iOS 17.2, iPad OS 17.2, tvOS 17.2, macOS Sonoma 14.2, watchOS 10.2, and also visionOS 6. They all got new beta builds that are out there for developers to test on. And there are a couple of things that I think are key to note in the betas that we recently have. For iPhone and iPad, the beta includes the Journal app. That was one of the things that was highly touted in the announcement for 17. And it hadn't been released, but now it's out there for people to start, whether building their apps with testing or integrating anything that they have going on. So that's a big one that's out there. Apple Music favorite playlist is in this beta. Reactions to iMessage stickers. And I know, Terrance, you have the iPhone 15,
hmm
and it adds the translate function to the action button. So
hmm
that's, they're adding, it seems like they're rolling out more features to be used with the action button.
hmm
There's some weather widgets, some not iMac, iMessage contact verification um, implementation, and an Apple Music focus filter. So
Okay.
that's interesting.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I have assigned the action button to something, and I
Okay.
actually assigned it to one, two, three, four shortcuts that I use. So instead of
Ah.
just being a singular use for the action button, like turning on the camera, or like
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned in this, turning on translate, I could, if you're like you mentioned, you've been traveling, probably the action button probably could have came in handy, the ability to quickly turn on the translate.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I really don't, I still don't use the action button as much as I would like. And maybe that's
Really?
because it is new and I still haven't found that perfect way to use it, which is
Mm-hmm.
why now I'm trying the shortcuts. And I've got a couple, one, two, three, four shortcuts that I've got assigned to the action button.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that likes. I see how I like that, but I still haven't found that one eureka moment yet, and I'm
That
waiting.
sweet spot for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and it's not because it's whack, just because I just haven't found that. What is it that I do a lot, frequently,
Mm-hmm.
that I could short down into one button? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe as Apple continues to add features to the action button, like I said, everything is not assigned. You can't assign any and everything to the action button yet.
Right.
So maybe as time goes on, and maybe as Apple adds more things, they will eventually add that one thing. It's like, that's the thing I do all the time. So let me program
Yep.
that.
Yep. And again, the translate definitely. I used translate a lot while I was traveling because it was three different countries, all with different languages, and the conversation feature within translate is very helpful.
Yeah, it actually,
Um,
we used it in when we went to Colombia and
mhm.
using Ubers a lot to be able to just hold the phone out like this and I speak and then kind of show the screen upside down and they
Mhm.
can read it and then they talk and then I can look at the screen. That definitely came in
Right.
handy.
Yep, for certain. So yeah, that was that would be very helpful. Next up on our beta list, tvOS. Um, the biggest thing that it seems to be for tvOS is for mostly for testing, but they did add a sidebar that shows content based on the channels that you have integrated. So what's, channels that are built in already, whether it be your Disney Plus or your Paramount Plus, it has this little sidebar that shows, the content uh from those features. But that seems to be about the only thing of note. Well, that was the only thing that was noted in the link. I mean, in the from Apple Insider,
Mm-hmm.
that it seems to be the biggest thing. But I think because we are on this third round, I think we're getting closer and closer to this release. So I think it's more. It seems to be, based on what I'm reading, it seems to be they want more hands on it to test it, to kind of put it through the ringer to see if there's anything they need to fix, if anybody finds anything. It seems like we're kind of in that final stage of getting ready to get to the public beta and then ultimately to the gold beta, which is the released version.
Well, I've got a personal thing that they could work on in tvOS. I have Sonos sound bars that I use
Uh-huh.
as the primary audio for my televisions, and which is the sound is coming from the Apple TV. It is going into my television, and then my sound bars are connected to the television. It's kind of a weird way it works. Instead of
So instead of it going straight through the sound bar, it goes to the TV, then goes to the sound bar.
right, right. So apps. So I've got Apple TVs hooked up on all my televisions.
Hmm.
Sound come and the video comes from the Apple TV into the television, and then the sound comes out of the television into the sound bar. Well, for the life of me, on two of the TVs, the volume, the ability to control the volume with the Apple TV remote, you can
Hmm.
program that to where if I just press the volume, obviously, press the volume on the Apple TV remote, the volume goes up and down, which would be fine if I was just listening for volume from the TV speakers or
Hmm.
through like HomePod speakers. Since I've got a
Right.
third party, Sonos, it's causing some issues, and I think it's Apple because I haven't done anything different. But again, when the tvOS 17 came out, now my TV's acting funky, so I'm gonna need Apple to work on that.
May have to put a little ticket in to say, hey, can you guys check this out?
Mm-hmm.
Next up, macOS Sonoma 14.2. It looks like many of the things that were included in iOS and iPad 17.2 are in macOS. Mentioned the iMessage sticker reactions, favorite Apple's playlist, collaborative Apple Music playlist, iMessage contact key verification are the main things. And again, in addition to that, getting the developers to basically put the software through the ringer and test it out to see if they find anything that Apple needs to take a look at or improve or issues they may find.
All right.
And watchOS 10.2. Um, it seems that this only includes allowing the user to ask Siri health questions that are the caveat is health questions that are entirely on device, not going through your iPhone, but questions directly that are being answered through the watch itself.
Right.
And this only is for Series 9 and Ultra 2,
Right.
which makes sense because those are the latest devices that have the new chip
Right.
that has the functionality for this.
Right.
And that's about it. There was a new beta for visionOS 6. And we'll talk about that next a little bit separately because um, as it relates to visionOS, um, this latest beta, we know that we're expecting to see what Vision OS, the Vision Pros, at the top of the year. So as we get closer, they are. It looks like they're really hammering down on what's coming next. And Apple didn't really give a lot as to what this beta is doing. I think the biggest thing people said that they saw is the naming of the firmware
Mm-hmm.
had a significant change in build. So to me, that indicates that this is um, a completely new version than what they were previously running, and it's in a better shape. It's better usage. So much so that included in this build, where I saw this article in 9 to 5 Mac, folks who downloaded this beta did a little digging around, and they were able to find some internal files on this beta 6. And what it includes are videos on how to
The
set
onboarding.
up
Yeah.
the onboarding of how you actually use this. So it shows the setup process. It demonstrates how a user can look at the elements on the screen and interact with them, whether it be icons or whether it be clicking on them or using the double tap gesture feature. The other thing is for each user, one of the biggest things that they talked about when they first announced this is the persona. So basically the 3D persona, because you have the eyes, but they're not really eyes. They're uh like
Transpose
generated.
video. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
right. And how you can set this up for FaceTime calls, because again, you know, it needs to be per individual, similar to what like your home pods. When someone calls out to the home pod, it can recognize the different voices. So this seems to be in line with what they're doing with this 3D persona situation. But all this says to me is they're getting really close to being ready for people to use it come the beginning of the year.
All right. It'll definitely help that these onboarding videos exist since this is a brand new device. People are, going to be trying to figure this thing out. And since it only has like a scroll wheel and
Hmm.
everything else is either you're looking at where you want to go or you're using your fingers to, tap and click, things like that. That's a brand new interface, an
Hmm.
input device, brand new input device. So, definitely Apple is pretty good with other videos, other setup guides that make it super simple to get through. So, of course, they're going to want that ironed out for this new Vision Pro, this brand new device coming out, so people can get up to using it quick, fast, in a hurry. And it ain't nothing like trying to read instructions,
You're
versus
trying to read instructions while wearing the thing, and it's
right.
like I can't see it because I'm trying to figure out how this works.
Right. So it's probably better for them to have a walkthrough instructional video, and probably my guess is it'll say something and it'll want you to actually do it. So it's similar like to when you set up Siri, it says,
Hmm.
say this phrase, say that phrase, say
Hmm.
this phrase, say that phrase. Now you've got it set up. Same thing,
Yeah.
I'll assume, with the Vision Pro is like, all right, to start a new message, do this.
Hmm.
To, turn up the advance to another screen, do this. And it'll probably
Yeah.
have you like do it so you can get
Yeah.
used to it.
Makes sense. But yeah, it's what we're basically at Thanksgiving, which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing is maybe a few months out. So yeah, it looks like we're coming down the home stretch of what we can expect from Vision Pro.
Yep.
That is going to wrap up the lowdown. Unless you had anything else, Terrance, you wanted to cover?
Nope.
All right. So let's head on over to Second String where we talk all other tech. So this particular story is a little bit Apple adjacent. Um, as we know, the whole blue bubble, green bubble controversy, Google's trying to, strong arm Apple into adopting RCS, and Apple's not budging. Where there is a new company called Nothing, where they are trying to have their own implementation of bringing iMessage to an Android device. The first version of this is supposed to be released on the 17th. So by the time you hear this episode, it should be available in the Google Play Store. So what's interesting about this particular app is it's an app that basically uses another app or service called Sunbird Messaging. And everybody's been asking, how are they able to do this? How, because iMessage is very well known to be a specific feature of Apple. Apple doesn't share it with anybody. They don't really give any indication of how this works or how you can bring it to another device, which has been probably one of the strongest contentions with other devices that they can't really kind of co-opt it. Well, according to this article, Sunberg Bird messaging uses its own cluster of Mac computers to
Mm-hmm.
quote, sign in users and relay their messages back to Android.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically a relay of messages from one device into the Apple ecosystem, then back to the Android device. And again, the app that's going to be using this nothing is using this Sunbird service. So
Mm-hmm.
based on Sunbird, they said that, the messages remain end-to-end encrypted and that no data usage is stored. But how comfortable would you be giving your Apple ID creds to a third party to relay messages back and forth?
Uh,
Is it really that big of a deal?
so that's the big question. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And the only way, in my opinion, they can make this work is because there are not a lot of people who are going to be buying nothing phones, which is an Android clone, not a clone, fork of Android. Not only are a lot of people not going to be using a nothing phone, a lot of people are probably not going to then go through the process of, like you said, either adding or creating an Apple ID just to be able to message somebody so it show up as a blue bubble.
Right.
We joke around about, oh, blue bubble versus green bubble. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
green bubble, yada, yada. But nobody really cares. Well, in my opinion,
There are some people I think that care,
I
but
don't know if
how
they,
much?
I don't know if they care enough to go
Uh-huh.
buy a nothing phone, to
Yeah.
create an Apple ID, just to, in essentially, you're using a Mac to send and receive iMessages, right?
It's almost like a switch relay.
Basically, that's what it is. And like I said, this works now because not a lot of people are going to do it. If
Right.
everybody who had an Android said, I want iMessage. So everybody got rid of their Samsung Galaxy phones. They got rid of their Google Pixels, and everybody
Hmm.
picked up a nothing phone, and everybody created an Apple ID, and everybody signed up using this Sunberg messaging. This system would crumble
Yeah.
because they can't.
Very quickly.
Right. The amount of messages people send, the amount of Apple
Yeah.
IDs, I mean, I know as being an IT guy in Atlanta, there is a company that uses nothing but Macs as
Hmm.
their servers. So if I were
Oh.
to, if I was a developer and I wanted to create a developing environment and I wanted to use this company, on the back end, I think, okay, I'm just setting up a server. Well, actually,
Right.
you're just setting up a server on a Mac. So essentially, you're using a Mac to create this developing environment, right? This is kind of like the same thing. Yeah, you're using an Android to send an iMessage, but essentially you're using a Mac because
Yeah.
your phone is talking to a Mac, which is signed in via Apple ID. And then that Mac is sending and receiving the messages from me being an iPhone user, and it's taking that message and doing whatever its magic, whatever Sunbird technology uses to be able to then display that on an Android, which, I mean, is creative. I, again, personally don't think that this is enough of an issue for them to
Yeah.
go through all this effort because, again, everybody's not switching over to a nothing phone because, as much as, like you said, as much as people claim it's an issue, it ain't this much of an issue for you to go do all this. People be like, nah, I'm
Like,
fine, I'm cool.
yeah, my thing is like, if it's that big of a deal to you, just buy an iPhone.
Right, right.
But honestly, as I think about this more, I'm thinking the CEO of Nothing, Carl Pell.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, this may be like a what they call it, a stopgap. They're trying to develop this in hopes that they can sell it
No, that's true.
to one of the, Samsung or Huawei or one of the other big Android phones to say, hey, we developed this technology. Don't you want to buy it and integrate it into yours? That's really about the only, upside I can see for this for them, because this is really a nothing burger,
At all, if you
honestly.
ask me. And
Yeah.
this, like you mentioned, the CEO says that the chat app is designed to break down the iMessage barrier that has long separated iPhone users from Android. It
Hmm.
ain't really a barrier because I can still text somebody on an
Yeah.
Android. I can text
Yeah.
them all day long. They can text me back. It's just the colors look different and there's some extra little funky features that really nobody even uses. We as
Who
iPhone
cares?
users, we're like,
Yeah.
oh, blue bubbles and all these features. We ain't using none of that stuff. We ain't sending money via Apple Cash. We're not creating stickers like that. We're not
Yeah.
replying thumbs up. And if we are, if I'm replying thumbs up to an Android user, all it says is
Thumbs
Terrance
up.
thumbs up this message. It's like, all right, that's good enough for me. Nobody's really like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do because I have an Android and
I can't
I,
communicate with anybody.
I can't use the iMessage language. iPhone users ain't using the iMessage language. So it's like, all right, relax. This has gotten too
Not like
far
that.
to where y'all actually think Android users are going to be like, finally, I can use iMessage. They don't care. iPhone
They
users,
don't
we don't
care.
care either. It's
No.
just this internet uh, ribbon back and forth.
Yeah.
That's all it's.
It's
That's
just
all
for
it
fun.
is.
It's just fun. And I have to say, it's one of those things where this seems to be more superficial than anything, because, as everyone knows, I was on vacation. Part of vacation was a cruise. And on the ship that we were on, you could get onto the ship's Wi-Fi,
Hmm.
and not the paid part of the Wi-Fi, but just be on the Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
And if you have an iPhone, anybody could iMessage anyone without having to pay for the internet package. You
Hmm.
get on the Wi-Fi, and if you have an iPhone, you can message people back and forth without any issue. So to me, the thing would be, this is very superficial. If you want, to get the iPhone really experience, those are the type of things that you want. Say being away, being able to iMessage someone without having to use data. Those are the things to me that make iMessage, not the blue bubble, green bubble nonsense.
Right. And if you have an Android, you can work your way around that. I think WhatsApp enables you to send and receive messages, and everybody has WhatsApp, so
Yeah.
it ain't that big of a hurdle. I can definitely
Right.
see how just with iPhone, just with everything that
Yeah.
Apple promotes, it just
Yeah.
works. So I
It
can
just
see that being a benefit, but again, there are ways around it to where people ain't really tripping to where it's like, oh man, I can't message people on a cruise. It's like you're supposed to be on a cruise having a good time anyway. Why are you worried about green bubbles versus blue bubbles on a cruise?
right. Right. So yeah, like I said, I think this guy is just thinking long term. He wants to sell this eventually to
That's,
somebody
I
with big
mean,
pockets, deep pockets.
as far as tech is concerned, as far as developing is concerned, as far as problem solving and engineering is concerned, I'm pretty sure this is a dope little project. But that's probably where it ends for me.
Yep. All right, that is going to wrap up second string. We're going to head into further culture, where we talk socially relevant things, topics, whether it be social media, whether it be in the news, that basically just kind of interest us, that we want to have some commentary on. And this week, we're maybe 20 games into the NBA season. So we're fresh into the NBA, and your boy, Draymond Green, is back in the freaking news. So, not even 2 minutes um, into the game. What was this? I think this was yesterday, right?
Surprisingly, I saw the clip and thought it was old, thought it was a couple years
Uh-uh.
ago. and really didn't realize until I started seeing it on TV. I'm like, oh, this happened recently.
Yeah, it happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
An in-tournament season game, an in-season tournament game between Golden State and between the Timberwolves. Again, less than 2 minutes into the game, nobody had scored. They just did the jump. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was really no time to
Mm-hmm.
really have really any beef. Well, a little scuffle happened between Clay Thompson, who is on the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
They got into a little back and forth. And then as they were doing the shuffling or whatever, Draymond Green runs up on Rudy Gobert, puts this man in a headlock and is dragging him away. So Clay is over there doing his, in his little scuffle or whatever. And then, of course, everybody comes in. But the thing is, this didn't even involve Draymond Green.
Well, so
He
what?
came from the side.
Right. So what happened was Klay Thompson and some other
Yeah,
Grizzlies
I can't remember
player
the. Yeah, I
got
can't remember what the other guy's name was.
got tied up because they were pushing and shoving. The Warriors guy said McDaniels said Klay Thompson held his jersey, and then they kind of got into a little push and tug back and forth. Either of them wouldn't let go of the ball to where they started pushing and then kind of shoving, and then it kind of got into a match. And then, as per usual, the bench is clear. Rudy Gobert being one of the people off of the Grizzlies. Is it Grizzlies? No, it's not the Grizzlies. Timberwolves. I skipped the Timberwolves. He came off to quote unquote back it up, break it up, try to push people out.
Right.
And then that's all Draymond Green needed to see. He saw Gobert
He saw his chance.
being the main person because Rudy Gobert is a big dude. So he stands out.
Big dude.
Draymond Green is like, that's all I needed to see. So he jumped in, like I said, grabbed Gobert to kind of pull him off of everybody, but in the process of pulling everybody off, choking the guy halfway to death.
and continuing, if his goal really was to get him off, he could have let go fairly easy, but he did not. He hooked him and then dragged him and kept dragging him. Needless to say, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Jaden McDaniels were all ejected. And I bring this up to say it is because this is not the first time that Draymond Green, in his 12 years in the NBA, has gotten himself into some mess, whether it be with other players on other teams, whether it be with his own teammates. It's just like they lost Jordan Poole because of this guy.
Right.
A young beast of a player ended up going to another team because he was like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this man like that no more. And it's just one of those things where, what is it?
Where's the line between taking up for your team, taking up for yourself? Yeah. And then actually it's like you have a personal issue and nobody wants to admit it, whether him, the team, the coach, the other players, the league. It's like clearly this dude has a emotional outburst, lack of control, something issue. And I don't know what they can do because this is just who he is. It'd be one thing if they could just suspend him for whatever and then he would be all right. Clearly that ain't, it's not going to stop. So I don't know what they do. I don't know what they say to the guy. But clearly it's not, if you are the main central point of all of these issues, it's you. It ain't everybody else. It ain't the league. It ain't sticking up for my team. It ain't,
multiple teams, different people.
It's you.
It just seems like he just wants to fight. Someone said on Twitter, they was like, he's running that group home mentality strong and giving me a silver tooth kid. And I rolled because it's just like, why are you so
on edge? On edge. It seems like he's
like all the time. He's just waiting for the opportunity to go in and fight somebody.
Yeah. And again, anybody else under these circumstances, because I've seen this happen before. I've seen players get into arguments back and forth All the teams, both teams, what you're supposed to do in baseball, in football, in
Football.
all of them. It's like this is your team member, whether you did something, if it's your family, if it's my brother,
Right.
whether he did
Whether you was in
something,
the wrong or whether you was in the right, I gotta show up.
I got to step in. Right. So in any other person, any other instance, people will be like, yeah, I can understand it, because you want to step in, right? But
Right.
Draymond Green is like, come on, bruh. You are doing entirely too much all the
Too
time.
much all the time. And my thing is, what do they do now? What do they do?
I
Do
think
they suspend him
I
again?
think they have reluctantly just accepted the fact that Draymond Green is going to be Draymond Green, and they will probably suspend him for a couple games, and that'll be it. I think they've just been like, he's the black sheep, and that's what black sheeps do. So we could just contain it and try to deal with it as it happens. But that's just who he is, and I guess as long as he don't physically injure somebody. Now, if he breaks somebody's leg, if he,
Take somebody out, ruins their
knock
career.
somebody unconscious, does something to where like season ending injury type
Hmm.
stuff, then
Yeah.
maybe. But most of this stuff is just being fisticuffs.
But my thing is, should it even have to get to that point where he harms somebody?
Well, that's just how our nature is. If you think about Ray Rice with the Ravens, they really wasn't gonna do nothing to him until we saw the video. Same thing with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Nothing really was gonna happen until somebody leaked the
Until it got put
video.
out there.
So
Yeah.
as long as it kind of just happens and we're kind of like, well, this kind of thing happens, it'll be okay. Now, like I said, until he gives somebody season ending injury or knocks somebody unconscious and we see it viscerally, that's when we'll spring. But until then, that's just who he is. He's a scrappy guy, I guess.
It's really unfortunate. And I think because he has his role on the team,
He's the
and basically
enforcer.
his role is the enforcer.
And every team has it.
Um,
It's just Draymond
mhm.
Green is like, yo, relax, man. Don't take it so seriously.
Like, not everything, you don't have to enforce everything. I mean, you don't have to just take it, to 1,000, maybe bring it down to 500 sometimes. You don't have to always be at the very top end of whatever the situation is. And again, he doubled down on it and he was like, I've been in the league for 12 years and y'all keep trying to tell me don't let Draymond be Draymond, but Draymond gonna be Draymond. And it's like he has no remorse about it or no concern about it. He's just like, this is who I am. And y'all need to stop trying to tell me who I should be and just let me be me. And
Well,
I'm like, bro, that's not how this works.
it's not how it's supposed to work. It's going to work until somebody decks him. Once somebody gets a good shot on him, because in all these instances,
Hmm.
Draymond has acted out and it's never gotten there. It's going to be,
Nobody's ever responded to him the way he responds to people.
it's going to
And I
take
think,
that one good time, he's going to get decked. And then it's going to be, all right, this is part of the game, or are you going to lose it? And then
right.
that's where we see if he's just playing a role
Yeah.
or if he is actually mentally, has some issues that he needs to work out.
Right. But my thing is, a lot of players don't want to take that risk of
It's going to be one.
injuring themselves or, you know, losing out some money because they're suspended.
And Draymond knows his
But
targets. He knows how to pick targets. Jordan Poole is
yeah,
smaller than him. Rudy Gobert, while bigger, he's kind of like a softie. And I hate to say it, but he's
yeah,
not the most physical big man,
play. Yeah.
that we've seen in the past. He chooses his targets. One time he's going to try to zero in on that.
He's going to underestimate
Right,
somebody.
exactly. And then we'll see. Then we'll see.
And my thing is, whomever that person is, they should not be punished because this guy has gotten away with it for how many seasons now? So I guess we will have to be on the lookout from out Adam Silver to see what the league does, what the team does. Um, because right now it's it was a lot because again, this didn't even involve him. This
Right.
was not his fight.
Eventually, and it's sad to say, between Steph and Clay and Draymond, both Clay Thompson and Draymond Green, I think what's going to happen, they'll be off the team. Unfortunately, because they are the trio that brought a couple championships, they work well
Mhm.
together, they know each other. Eventually the Warriors going to be like, y'all got to go.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Clay, the injuries, he's streaky, but he's never really,
He's not consistent at all.
he's not been back to pre-injury Clay Thompson and Draymond. Like I said, he's just a liability, and both of them are older in age. They're both at the time where their contracts need to be negotiated, and
Uh,
this fight and some of these other things are going to be, Warriors are going to have to eventually they're
they're
going to
going
have
to
to
make some decisions.
eventually they're going to have to decide, all right, we're in rebuilding phase. Right now they're
Yeah.
still in championship chasing ring phase. And it's going to be sad when the Warriors finally decide to get into, all right, blow it all out. Let's start over.
Yeah. Let's burn to the ground. And the interesting thing is Steph wasn't even playing. I think he's out injured.
Yeah.
So now you have like your three biggest players. Two are going to be suspended, depends on how long. And then Steph is out. I don't know when he's coming back. Their core team is going to be basically on the bench and they're just going to be out here.
Mm-hmm.
All because, people couldn't keep their emotions in check.
Yep.
So, again, we shall see what the fallout or repercussions of this whole situation is. Alrighty. The hookup, where we talk all things our tech tip from Brother Tech. What do we have in the hookup this week?
Well, with the announcement of the new MacBook Pros, eventually Apple probably decided now's the time to get rid of the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which had my beloved Touch Bar. Nobody,
Yep.
nobody else loved it but me. On the Touch Bar, it gave you the ability to program buttons that you wanted to add to the Touch Bar. One of the buttons that I always added was the emoji button. I could press the emoji button on the MacBook. It would pop up a window and let me add emojis to messages, notes, whatever the case I was typing at that time. Well, since the touch bar is gone, there is no button on the MacBook Pro keyboard that enables you to automatically pop up emojis. Well, there is a shortcut, and that's my tip for this week. If you are typing on your Mac, whether it be in a message, note, email, and you want to use emojis, the shortcut for that is the control button, the command button, and the space bar. Type those three together, it'll pop up a window that shows you all of the emojis. You can actually favorite ones, frequently use emojis, similar to how it would be on your iPhone if you're using it. So that is my tech tip for the week. If you want to use emojis on your Mac, the shortcut key is the fastest way. And that key is, again, like I said, control, command, and spacebar.
Nice. Well, with that, that is going to wrap up the show for this week. We definitely want to thank each of you for tuning in. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva all over the interwebs as well. As always, to connect, to comment, to share, and to support our show, you can head on over to snobblewestcast.com to get all of the details. And with that, we are going to wrap up this week's show. We will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.